Welcome to a football show Monday edition. That is Paul Kuharsky, paulkuharsky.com. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, just 3 weeks away from the NFL Draft 2026. PK, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Good to see you, and good to be moving along towards the blessed date.
That is true. Momentarily, we'll tell you.
Earth.
Yeah, that's right. We're in the third trimester of the draft season, is what I'm hearing you say. So we will discuss. We'll have some time for you guys to ask some questions if you want around the NFL draft. So you can do that a little bit later on in the show. One of the main topic today, though, is I wanted to get into a conversation with you. It's a little bit more vague and nebulous, but the Titans are going through a completely they're going through a total rebrand off the field. They've got the new stadium. We've got a front office that has so many different voices and names and personalities in it. There's a new coach. There's new players. There's a new class. And so I thought we could spend some time today trying to figure out like how to define what it is they're trying to be, whether it's on the field with the players, whether it's front office strategy, whether it's off the field branding. There's this whole new thing here happening with this organization. I thought we can kind of talk through what does that mean for culture and personality and identity and brand, etc. So what exactly are the new Tennessee Titans going to be? So we'll get into that a little bit. You got a couple of really good pieces, of course, up at paulkuharsky.com talking about the free agent class and their strategy, the Titans, around that, as well as Mike Herndon's. Basically, Mike Herndon you could have just taken all of Mike Herndon's column and just put in Mike Borgonzi quotes from the owners' meeting last week. But really good stuff from Mike. Lots of words on lots of players. So always good to read.
Second round, basically. He looked at second round potential.
Focusing on number 35. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we'll talk through what his strategy was and sort of what he delivered in that as well. So lots of stuff to do. Of course, make sure you sign up for the in-crowd. And I've been telling you guys for years at Sinkers Beverages to sign up for the in-crowd. It's a customer appreciation group. They don't really bother you or say anything to you, or they're going to send you like some cool stuff like every couple months. That's about it. But the reason you need to know that phrase, in-crowd, I'm a member. Lots of you out there listening, I've seen you at the store. And I know that you drive by other liquor stores to get to Sinkers because they're the best 5-time liquor store of the year. But if you know the word in-crowd, then you know how to RSVP for our charity draft watch party coming up on the 23rd on the first round and the 25th on Saturday. So 2 nights. We're going to have really cool events for you guys. But if you want to RSVP, every dollar goes to charity. So it's not a lot of money when you know that every penny is going to charity. $40 for Thursday night at ML Rose. Doors at 6:30. We're going to be there with some live content and some giveaways and all kinds of cool stuff. All you can eat, all you can drink. All there on Thursday night at ML Rose in East Nashville. Then on Saturday, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue from 7 o'clock to about 10 o'clock. We're going to have a private Q&A. We're going to have some giveaways, some gift bag stuff, a bourbon tasting. All you can eat, all you can drink from Shotgun Willie's as well. $75 for Saturday night, $40 for Thursday night. RSVP your slot. There are limited slots. They are filling up quickly. RSVP by emailing in-crowd, INCROWD, in-crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Email those guys. Tell them how many and what night you want to come, and we'll take care of you there. So there you have it. Come out and hang out. PK is going to be there on Saturday night. Suss is going to be there on Saturday night. You got James Foster and some special guests are going to be there. Steve Cavendish, myself, a lot of other folks are going to be there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun, and really enjoy spending time with you guys for a good cause, getting to tell some Titan stories. It's a lot of fun. So come on out Thursday and Saturday.
We had a good time last year, so I'm looking forward to more of the same.
Yeah, I can't do 5 flights of bourbon anymore. I'm not in my peak bourbon drinking time, and it got a little loose last year. It got a little loose as they were passing out like the 4th or 5th round of bourbon. I was like, guys, I don't know what questions to ask anymore. Stoney,
maybe we need a different moderator.
Stoney Keeler can handle it. So Stoney handled it quite well last time. Yes, you can. That's correct. Braden, I'd love your ranking of the last 6 Ohio State wide receivers drafted in the first round, including Tate, and your opinion on if he's worth a top 5 pick. Story about Cardinal Tate, paulkuharsky.com at number 4.
Yeah, well, I did a video to go with this. Let me go into Cardinal Tate a little bit. So Drew Beatty is a big Cardinal Tate guy, and he does think that he's conceivably worth 4, contextually. Here's what I did my video on from the owners' meetings after talking to some people about Tate and about speed in general. I want the Titans to have a dynamic outside playmaker. And I don't think they dedicate enough resources to getting there. Last 7 years, since the A.J. Brown trade, obviously Traylon Burks didn't pan out. Other than that, I think they've spent 5 picks, and the highest has been 4th rounders. We know Des Fitzpatrick was a disaster. DK and Iomanner are promising, but I would say, have limited ceilings. DK's value is primarily as a returner. He's not going to be the guy I'm talking about, right? To get the guy I'm talking about, you're going to have to spend a 1st or 2nd round pick. And so what I said in the video is I am trying to reform myself away from needing it to be a 4-4 guy, because there are a lot of 4-4 guys who shine at the combine, don't turn out to be players. And there are a ton of 4-5 guys. What did A.J. Brown run at the combine? Who turn into great receivers. The league is loaded with 4-5 guys who are terrific receivers. And so, Carnell Tate has questions about his yards after the catch, and that to me is bigger. But I talked to a couple people who were like, listen, the GPS time may be important on some of these, more important than some of these guys than the 40 time. And while I thought Adam Schefter was being a Drew Rosenhaus shill when he put out, hand times were better than laser times, I talked to somebody who told me there are 4 stopwatches on the floor at the combine and 2 in the stands, 6 that are regarded as pertinent information that everybody gets access to. And that Tate was better on all 6 of those watches than he was by the laser. Now, this sounds primitive, right? And like cavemanish, that people are still looking at those hand timers against the laser. One person told me the laser is regarded as slow. Now, that means everybody's rounded up then, I guess, right? But they're measuring year versus year, right? And if they don't like the laser and they like the hands better, say what you will about it. My broad point is I'm trying to wean myself off of saying they got to have a 4-4 blade to be this guy, and just look at guys who are this guy. Now, as Carnell Tate can win downfield, I'm a little concerned. My thing that makes Carnell Tate not number 4 is that he's not a yards after the catch guy the way you'd want that guy to be.
Now, the question was from Sammy, sort of how would you rank all these guys? And I think Greenhouse 88's come back with pretty good ranking here. The way I would do it, and if I'm being honest with sort of my own evaluations at the time, I probably would have had Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 1. If I'm being honest with my rankings, it would have been either JSN or Marvin Harrison. Now, I was told by an Ohio State coach when they had all these guys there at one time, JSN was a freshman and was kind of barely getting minutes. And he told me, he goes, the freshman's better than the other ones, which is Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave. And so I kind of always had JSN higher probably than the average NFL scout probably did, but I would have also had Harrison at the top. So the follow-up to all of this is that Jeremiah Smith is better than all of them.
Sure.
The current receiver at Ohio State. So I would have
and you don't want the Titans to be in position for him next year.
No, but
you have to be top 3.
Probably you're right.
Maybe 4.
But you don't hate the consolation prize. Number 1, Jeremiah Smith. Number 2, probably Marvin Harrison. Number 3, JSN. I had Garrett Wilson clearly ahead of Chris Olave, but I also loved Emeka Egbuka. Like, I loved him as a player last year.
You raved about him.
I wanted him in Green Bay. I wanted him in Tennessee. I just love that player. And so I had him. I think he is a far better prospect than Carnell Tate. And that's crazy because a lot of these guys went outside of the top 15. So Olave and Wilson would have graded out much higher by everybody. I personally had Egbuka higher. So I think
Egbuka was terrific early. Did he get hurt? Did he have a hamstring?
Well, they lost Evans. They lost Godwin. And so he became the number 1. And
he really was overcovered, and he dropped off significantly.
Sure.
But his initial showing, you were like, I was saying that's what the Titans need, a guy like that. Get a guy like that.
And he's one of those guys that doesn't have like extraordinary measurables in any one thing, but he's just a really good football player.
Point. Kind of really to the point. I'm trying to convert myself.
That's right. I think Mekhi Lemon is very similar to Emeka Egbuka. He's just a really good all-around football player. Maybe he doesn't have the extreme measurables, height or press coverage or whatever. My issue with Tate is that I cannot make the case. I think he's a really good asset for the Titans. Like, I'm not going to deny that. I just think that there's no yards after catch. I am curious about. He's great contested catch down the field. Got
Can
the
he grow
frame,
into
got
yards
the
after
size.
the catch, or is it just not there?
It never really was there, and so it's hard to explain that I don't see a top 5 player. The problem with saying that is that I could say that about Ruben Bain.
Yeah, right.
I could say that about all the offensive linemen. You could say that about like half the positions on the field in this draft. It's just not a great draft.
Love.
Not a great draft. I disagree with that. I think Love is a top 5 draft pick and a top 5 running back in most, or top pick at running back in almost every draft.
Top pick at running back is different than a top 5 pick.
Sure. But you have to move players up who are worthy of being graded at a certain point. And that's why Styles and Love are such good options for the Titans at 4. It's not because the position value, it's because the rest of the players should not be graded as highly as those guys. So
keep that list up for another second. So JSN went into a perfect situation. He was a receiver 3 in his first year. Second year, still slow build. Third year, best receiver in the league, probably. Certainly, top 3 receiver.
He was over 1,000 yards in his second season, for what it's worth.
But given time, expectations were not gigantic for him first year. Titans draft a receiver in the top 10. He's expected to be the best receiver on the team right out of the gate. Now, look, you have to manage expectations and be a good enough player to survive all of that and everything. But the situation you go into dictates a lot about you. Draft wide, right? We've seen a lot of guys who are good enough players but wound up busting in their situation because of the team and the situation and the management and all of that. Now, we hope the Titans are under better coaching management. We hope they're under better drafting management and all of that. But JSN had it as good as anybody could coming into the league, probably needed a little bit of time and definitely got a little bit of time. So he was perfect.
And I want to be clear, Carnell Tate on this roster as a first-round pick, it solves a problem, adds talent that they do not have, and I think is an asset to the team moving forward. The question is
does he leave you looking for a number 1 receiver?
I think that's the question.
Yeah. Is he very clearly your number 1 receiver? If that he doesn't answer that automatically by selecting him is the thing that gives you concern.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you're if you trade down, which we're seeing a lot of now, right? Because this is the time we're going to see lots of rumors about stuff. If the Titans move down and are picking between 9 and 12, I think a lot of stuff is on the table. Wide receiver, Lemon, Tyson, or Tate. You got offensive linemen that could be on the board right there between 9 and 12 that would make sense potentially. Both Vega and Moanoa and Monroe Freeling potentially if you need to solve that problem either at guard this year or at tackle next year.
You can't take a guard.
I mean, you
talk positional value and talk.
You can't.
And talk Skoronski.
You don't want to take a guard at 11, PK?
Guards within 5 years in the top 12.
At number 11, it would be so good for our jobs, though.
Oh, it would not. It would not.
So I think this question has already derailed the entire show, and I appreciate that.
No, it's good.
But I am torn on this because I personally liked Emeka Egbuka so much. Like I had him very high. And so far, I think that was justified. We'll see what
he's going to be excellent.
We'll see what his career looks like. But those guys, he was taken in the 20s. JSN was taken like 22. Like, if you're picking 12 and you take Tate, I know it seems weird, but that feels more logical. Like it feels more to ask him to be a high number 2, a low end number 1, and still come back and get another one, and maybe have 2 number 1s at some point in this Cam Ward era, I think is interesting. So, okay.
Let's stay with receiver for 1 second there. Sammy follows up with it. He thinks if Tyson didn't have the injury issues, he'd be an unquestioned wide receiver 1 in the draft. I think they should take him off the board. I mean,
the Titans.
Yeah, with their determination to be a healthier team. I mean, we always say this, the best predictor of injury future is injury past. And this guy just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I don't think you could touch him in the first round. I mean, he's too fragile. He's just too fragile.
He's fragile. All right. So a couple other things here quickly on paulkuharsky.com, of course. Herndon wrote a big piece. I'm not going to try to go into all the details about this because it's like thousands of words, which I appreciate from Mike all the time. But basically it comes down to don't look at the roster. Don't try to over-evaluate what slots and what positions you need. Take a football player who is guaranteed to be on your roster for 4 to 7 years and just make sure that he's the best player available, which is what Mike Borgonzi told you and everybody else over and over and over and over and over again. and this is at 35, which could be the beauty of 35 is that I think the board's going to fall to you. The question is we don't know what position. So I think you got to be prepared to go off your positional rankings to go horizontal at 35.
Right. And we know they're not doing this at 4 just because there are simply positions that are not in play at 4 because the talent is not there. The talent can be there at a wide variety of positions at 35, depending on how things are going. And, it's a great scenario that somebody drops to you at 35 that was predicted to go at 25. And that's an ideal scenario. And so he starts each section of this, as he's going offensive tackles, guards, cornerbacks, whatever, with a couple guys like, I'm not going to spend much time on these 3 guys, but if one of these guys fell, hey, that's a place you should be going automatically. And so, it's a typical Herndon piece with a lot of depth and texture. And it might be 2 meals for you instead of 1.
Well, and one of the questions I know you wanted to ask sort of later around sort of expectations around prospects and how they performed relative to competition. I think there's a lot of names on that list that I would include in that answer.
Well, that's where I got my guy, who's a very highly rated guy.
You want to go ahead and do that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I became very interested reading about him and looking at some more, and Caleb Lomu from Utah. And so, I can't claim to have watched a lot. I was looking really for a clip to put in the piece. This is a man amongst boys in a lot of situations. But then there's him working against Bailey and Romeo Height. And it's not that great for a 6'6", 313 guy playing his final season of college football. He's getting credit for 1 rep against Bailey where Bailey's kind of falling to the ground. And it doesn't seem he did anything. So a lot of mixed reviews for his play, but clearly didn't win the day. And so I'm looking at that small sample size and thinking, well, here's a guy who looks like he's dominant against people he should dominate and not as good against, the caliber of people he's going to face in the NFL. Now he's 25th on the Athletics updated consensus board and 23rd on the big consensus board. He's the kind of guy Herndon was talking about. Like, if this guy falls to you at 35, you'd have to seriously think about him, even though you're talking left tackle of the future, and Dan Moore's ultimate replacement. But I looked at him and I thought, like, I want to be swept off my feet for that guy. And watching him against Bailey and Height, I wasn't. Watch him against other people. I watched him against other people first, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable.
Right.
And then I turned it up to see him against, people who are going to be drafted in the first 2-3 rounds, and I didn't quite see it. Now, maybe that's an ideal scenario. Comes into the league, sits for a year or most of a year behind Moore, and polishes it up and is equipped to handle those kind of guys.
So I got a handful of guys to answer your question. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Mr. Foster and just confirm, right? And I gave him about 6 names. I said, here are the 6 names that I would kind of put in this category of names that I really liked and I wanted to like, but then you kind of check, you recheck, and you double check, and you're kind of going, I'm not sure if the high-end talent is there where they're on the board.
The way I couched it to you, which was a little sloppily done initially, was guys you want to be better than they are.
Yeah, that's fair. And so I have my 3 or 4 names, and so I texted James Foster. I said, hey, who would you put in this bucket? Right. By the way, James and I, Hot Read podcast coming out this evening at 6:00. You're going to get an entire hour of offensive line coverage. So we're going to talk about Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fanu, 2 different people, same offensive line. I texted him that question. I said, who would you put on this list? And he said Denzel Boston and Caleb Lomu, and that's unprompted.
There you go.
I assume he reads and has I assume he has your notifications turned on and is reading your story.
Well, I haven't said this anywhere before.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is
so his numbers on Denzel Boston. He said 1.2 yards per route. Denzel Boston, Washington wide receiver, late first round pick, could be there at 35 for the Titans. Right. Big, huge, 6'3", over 200 pounds. Herndon wrote a little bit about him.
Yeah, Herndon wrote about how he's an outlier for Dayball. Now, has Dayball always craved a guy like this, Or is it intentional that Daboll's never had a guy like this? We don't know. But it seems, the sample size is big enough that it's not an accident that he hasn't had a big guy.
Averaged 1.2 yards per route run versus Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. Averaged almost 3 yards per route run receiving against every other team on his schedule. But also, like, you should struggle against Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. They're very good defensive teams. So you don't, like, it's worth noting. It doesn't mean you don't take the player. But the names I wrote down, first of all, Cassius Howell is just not a player I want to see the Titans draft. He had 11.5 sacks last year out of Texas A&M. He's a player that a lot of people are looking at 35 if you don't go edge rusher in the top 5. He had 5.5 sacks last year. Of that 11.5, he had him against Utah State, and he had him against Mississippi State, probably the worst team in the SEC and a FBS sort of lower level mid-major team. He's where he got half of his sack production. He doesn't have the measurables, and he got 0 sacks against Notre Dame, Texas, and Miami, the 3 biggest games that they played this year. He is thin. He doesn't have a lot of depth of movement. He's got just the speed rush, and he doesn't have the measurables, and his production didn't match up with the quality of opponent for Texas A&M. So I'm not that's a guy that I think the Titans would be interested in at 35, fans at least, and I don't think he should be somebody that people are considering in that area. One other one I would put out here is Caden Proctor, who I think could be available also at 35, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. Now, he might be more of a project, more physical skills that you'd like, but if you watch the first half of the season last year against a team like Florida State and a few others, it was not even worth like watching the tape afterward. Like, it was so bad in some of those games. So he rebounded and came back down the stretch, but I think he's interesting to talk about because I think he will be available, or he could be available late first round, early second round if things fall right. And I do think, PK, the more James and I talk through offensive line strategy, and you can hear that entire conversation later, I think that there's a really good chance, to Herndon's point about best available, that a very good offensive tackle is available at 35, and that you might have to take a guy like Blake Miller out of Clemson, who would be my pick there, who just has all the measurables. And honestly, I asked James, I said, is this the Taylor Lewan comp? Does he remind you of Taylor Lewan? And he said, absolutely.
Athletic?
He's very athletic, lots of compete, could bulk up a little bit, but has a lot of athletic skills. So I just think offensive line is more on the board at 35 than people realize.
Well, I mean, that sounds good. And I understand the logic of it and all of that. But then the question that comes right on the heels of that is, then are you talking a 3 offensive lineman draft? And are you talking 3 offensive linemen at 2 in relatively quick succession? Because they got to have an interior guy who can definitely start. And there's no Trey Smith in this draft that's going to slide to them in the 6th round because of a weird medical thing that's going to fall in their favor, by the way, and turn out to A, make the guy available in the 6th round, and B, then not be a medical issue for them. So, for Borgonzi to use that as example is stretch, to be frank, right? Yeah. So if they draft your tackle at 35, at 66, you got to be thinking guard already, or if not 66, 101 for sure. And then 2 of your first 4 are offensive linemen, and you're pretty position heavy.
What do you
a lot of concerns.
I think so. If you go through the 5th round, that's 144. That's 6 picks. I think 2 of those are offensive linemen, and I don't care where they come. But I think 2 of them have to be offensive linemen. I think the difference is that you could draft. Now, this is far-fetched, and you could probably poke holes in this quickly. If you were to draft one of those guys that's a little bit more of a tweener, right? We're not sure if he's a tackle or guard. You could play him at guard for 1 year and then move him, kick him back out to tackle in the 2nd year. It's unusual, but Caden Proctor could do that. Yeah. Now, that's what's weird about that slot at 35.
I mean, that's a nice idea that solves 2 problems at once. You get your guard for this year, and you get your left tackle for next year, except you still need a guard. So
you got to get one later in the draft.
Body count isn't. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think you draft 2 in the first 6 picks,
and then you got another one next year.
And then you draft another one next year. But I think you can solve some problems with that. So Chris Brazel's another one that I'm sort of really torn on. He was a little bit more productive in terms of like the kind of the gist of your question, right? Like, hey, who was really, really good against lower level competition, and then he doesn't necessarily fit into that, but there's something about he's got really good movement skills and he's got a lot of traits, but it's just not like I have concerns about it. And I don't know if that's fair or not. He put up huge numbers against Georgia, but that was a secondary that was kind of still had problems early in the year. 138 yards against Kentucky, 105 yards against Mississippi State, 125 yards against East Tennessee State. Those were his 3 of his 4 best yardage totals. Those are not exactly high level competition. 7 catches, 66 yards against Alabama. Okay, that's fine.
How about this? Let somebody else find the first UT Josh Heupel weapon that succeeds before you do it.
I thank you, Ryan, for doing this. Keldrick Falk at 35 is a real possibility. Herndon wrote about it. I think Falk is one of the top names on this list of people you asked me about. So number one, not only is he not the wide
smaller than I used.
No, he's huge. He's huge, but he is not the wide 9 guy. He is the Jermaine Johnson player.
Yeah.
So you don't need that. And he had 2 sacks this year. 2 sacks. He was a preseason top 5 talent and had 2 sacks and did not produce behind the line of scrimmage. Great run stuffer on the edge. He can set the run, but got nothing done as a pass rusher. And I think he is tantalizing as a prospect. But I don't think you want to try to develop that into something productive.
I'm texting you a picture of him that I used in this Herndon piece, so that people don't think I'm an idiot, because I don't think this picture does him justice if he in fact is.
Is that the one that was in the story?
Yeah,
from his Instagram,
where he's bent down near a blocking bag.
I didn't think much of it when I saw it in the story. Like, it's hard to tell like how big that is. He's measured pretty. He's a pretty large dude, like 6'6", 270.
Yeah. So you're out on Falk and Howell, who are largely regarded as 35-ish.
Yeah.
I do think. Look, there's been a lot of talk about. Let's get into this. Another sidetrack about JFM playing outside, right? So if you're playing JFM outside, people are talking base downs. Well, if you play JFM outside on base downs, that means he and Jeremiah Johnson are the 2 ends and Simmons is in the middle. Well, who's next to Simmons? Solomon Thomas would be the top choice. Well, Solomon Thomas also seems more equipped to me to be an early down end than an early down inside guy. At any rate, I would rather see 4 on first down that include this edge. Again, you're talking base versus nickel, I guess, but the front doesn't have to change based on, you're talking run down versus pass down. So maybe you do that, but I think Franklin Myers is also playing the same spot that Jermaine Johnson is playing and not the other side. Now, maybe you say, well, you go 2 big ends against the run. All right, super obvious run down sometimes, yes. But everybody's saying, well, you play those 2 guys at end, and they're not making any account for who's playing next to Simmons in that.
Yeah, and I think you can move people around and you can have some fun with it, but I think eventually you do need something that you do like 65 to 75% of the time really well.
What's that? That's my concern. I'm not worried about the 25%.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody said, hey, Bustin says, listen, we can use these stats against all players. Jeremiah Love looked pretty Clark Kent against actual competition. I'll disprove that momentarily. But also, like, that's kind of the point of the question, is to try to dig deeper and find out where is that struggle valid and where is that struggle just everybody struggled against so-and-so. Everyone had a tough time against this pass rusher or against that pass blocker. But if you look at Jeremiah Love, like, they lost to Miami in week 1, but he only had 14 touches. Very famously only had 14 touches, and the Notre Dame coaching staff was ridiculed for that. But he averaged over 4 yards a touch in that game. But that was like one of the moments we all said, why aren't you using this player more? Very next week against the top 10 Texas A&M team at home, he has 147 yards, over 5.5 yards per touch. Against ranked USC, 228 rushing, 37 receiving, 29 touches, over 9 yards a touch, 265 from scrimmage in that game. And remember, when they beat Indiana in the playoff the year before, he had over 12 yards a carry in the playoff game. So, again, I think Jeremiah Love is a fairly proven commodity. I don't think he fits into this category.
I'd flip. I don't know whose question that was you were responding to. Doesn't everybody have problems against? I want the guy that you're talking about. I want Caleb Lomu to be somebody that everybody has problems against if I'm taking him 35th.
Right.
And I don't think that flips by 35. I think it flips maybe by 66 or whatever we're talking.
I think that's fair.
Right. But
Yeah.
I want you to still be getting that kind of guy at 35 that everybody has problems against, not that you're good against until you see a really good guy.
Joe, this is essentially our 6 months of draft conversation. David Bailey or Jeremiah Love, those would be my top 2 picks at 4 as well.
I'd take Bailey.
Those would be my top 2.
But I'm not going to be unhappy either way.
And it might be decided for you with Arizona. Who knows? We'll see. All right. Do you like him more than Justin Hunter? Lazy comp. That was not even a Josh Heupel thing. All right. All right. Sinkers Beverages. Make sure you RSVP for our draft party. All the money goes to the Our Kids Foundation. It is a great organization here in Middle Tennessee, helping the children of this area, protecting them with some of the best people in this city. Make sure you RSVP in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Just shoot an email. Tell them, hey, Thursday night, I'm bringing 3 people. And that's all you got to do. We'll take payment at the door, $40 for Thursday night, $75 for Saturday night, or come for both. We'd love to have you guys. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be 2 fun evenings, and all you can eat, all you can drink, lots of good food. Good times will be had by all. So come on out. Thanks to Sinkers Beverages for putting all of this together and putting it all on. They don't make a single penny. In fact, it costs all of us money to do all this stuff, and we want to raise the money to help kids. So I think we're at like $11,000 and some change dollars raised, over $12,000 maybe raised over 4 or 5 years. And so really excited to have you guys come on out. Okay. All right. I want to get into this. Like, it's a very, I'm not sure why this really stuck in my head, but I'm listening to all the Titans people speak about their areas, right? And you're hearing Robert Saleh say the fast and violent thing right away at the first press conference, and has sort of coached that way for his entire career, both as a coordinator and as a head coach. We see the evidence of what that looks like. I think that's pretty easy to define, PK. Then you hear the front office and mostly Borgonzi say has draft, develop, retain. That is a developmental program that wants to find the players that fit their mold, their identity, and build them up, develop them, and then pay them. You've got the front office has so many different voices now with like 5 other general managers that are all available as a personality or an asset to Borgonzi and Brinker to make decisions. Brinker has a track record and history in this area as well. Then you got the outward brand with a new stadium coming next year, new uniforms, new brand. Clearly at that event when they launched their new uniforms, and I think Suss said this first, and I'll go with it, their new brand is like fun. We want people to have fun. We want to be fun again. We want to be distinct. We want to be colorful. We want to listen to fun music. We want to be more Broadway than we are sort of the suburbs. And like it just feels like they're kind of building that brand off the field. So my first question is like, when you put it all together, how would you define the new identity or the new culture or the new personality of what the Tennessee Titans organization wants to be moving forward?
I'm not going to be great here because I think they got to do something first before they can find it. And it's not always what you want, right? Let's go to Brian Billick when he lands Baltimore, right? He was going to be, he came in as an offensive guy and he wound up with a defensive team. I don't think it's going to go extremely opposite, Saleh, because they know what they hired and what his skill set is as an energetic defense. And they've already made a lot of moves that align with that. So I think it's going to be that, but how it all ties together, I don't disagree with your assessment and Nick's assessment of being kind of more fun. But until we're in that stadium and pick up the vibe, look, I have great vibes about the stadium. But then they put out today, this club is a speakeasy and it's dark and wood. And I don't want to go to a speakeasy if I'm a big dollar spender. I don't want to go to a speakeasy at the stadium. I want to go to something that feels like a stadium. I can go to a speakeasy by going to a speakeasy.
What's the price point on that?
So that's a miss to me. I don't know, but it's high end. It's one of the highest end.
See, I think you're underestimating how much really wealthy people want to be behind their own doors.
Well, be behind your own doors, but still give it a stadium feel. If I'm going to a place at the stadium that could be anywhere, I don't get it.
Well, but you can watch them warm up, though. You can watch them warm up on the field from that place.
Well, why wouldn't they put out a picture that shows that? They gave us 3 pictures, and none of them indicate that you could see people warming up on the field from there. It looked like a dark, woody, rich Tennessee guy club.
It reminds me of certain.
Don't you already have that if you're a rich Tennessee guy?
It reminds me of a lot of the places downtown that you don't know that are on the other side of a door.
Like the Standard. I mean,
a lot of
Standard, right?
Yeah. A lot of politicians. There's a lot of places like that host a lot of, hey, here's 8 Republicans and 3 Democrats from the state house, and they're all getting together to debate whatever. They're smoking Cuban cigars and drinking expensive bourbon that they got from Sinkers Beverages at a better price. And they're all behind a door that no one in the public knows exists. All I'm saying is that, like, if you have that type of vibe, which does look very like dark. Everything, it looks very dark, but I think having access to seeing the field, and I agree with your point. If you're going to put out something, like put it out with like a visual, like, oh, here's the players warming up on the field. I think it's more fun than you think for a certain class of individual. Like, it's a private place that no one knows exists down here. And we can get in. Like, exclusivity, a lot of value for the decision-making class of our society.
I get that, but I would make it exclusive and very football-y. That could be anywhere.
So I think here's maybe a follow-up. I think on the field, it's the easiest to predict kind of what they want to be. And I think Greenhouse kind of nails this. The new culture is the same as the classic Titans culture, which is circling back to stout defense, run the ball, tough quarterback with Cam Ward. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's the smart thing to do. But I want to ask you from a front office perspective, because it seems like there are so many voices and perspectives in that room, whether it's Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Dave Ziegler, Reggie McKenzie, and more. There's other names there that I know you're going to add to the list, but there's a lot. And I'm curious, if I were to say, hey, how would you define the Green Bay Packers personality? How would you define the Kansas City Chiefs personality? Not Rodgers and Mahomes, but like, how would you define those organizations?
Very steady.
Okay, well, how is that? But how do you make steady a personality trait?
Well, your management is kind of very level, consistent, doesn't overreact to anything, patient, planning, all of those things, which I think you could already see those traits in Borgonzi.
That's what I was going to say.
And you certainly see them in Brinker, and we don't know, the degree of Brinker's influence anymore. I think going to have to kind of figure that out as we go. But I think we see indications of that already. Now we're going to have to see it not just with new contracts for Simmons and Skoronski, which are obvious, but with the development of some of these guys and what they do from there. If Jermaine Johnson is what they expect Jermaine Johnson to be, will they be able to sign Jermaine Johnson before free agency next year? That's one of the guys I would put out there as kind of a harbinger of, they know him coming in. The head coach knows him, likes him. If he's what they expect him to be, can you add him to the stack of people as you gradually add? He's not a draft and develop guy that had to go beyond that. So here's your next test case, because it's going to be a while before your draft guys start to get in that position.
I think about what's interesting. I think through my experience as a Green Bay fan, and I think through that patience and that steadiness, and I think Joe uses the word calculated. I think sometimes it can be frustrating. But if you look at the organizations who use that as sort of a guiding North Star, I think it generally works, but it also can be frustrating at times. It can cause a problem with a Hall of Fame quarterback who wants to know what's going on now, or a coaching change might take 1 year too long, or things of that nature. So I think you got to be careful of being too slow moving.
Yeah, it can't be a glacier.
Right. And so I think, honestly, the word that comes to mind because I think Borgonzi actually, on a personality level, like how he is wired, I think he fits a lot of those things you're talking about. I don't know about the rest of them, But I think he fits that sort of like, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to sit in the corner. I'm going to no ball. I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to be convicted in that decision, and I'm going to kind of just be right here at all times. And I think that he kind of does fit into that mold. But I think there's one word that comes to mind that I think they need to be, and that is shrewd. You have to, the calculating is one way to put it, but I think you got to have some, like, you can be smooth and steady, but you got to be gangster when you have to be gangster. And that means for the Packers, for example, it was going out to get Parsons. I didn't love the move. It could work out to be a great move, but we'll see. It's letting a bunch of their players leave for draft picks, right? And I'm just using the Packers because it's my experience and Brinker. But I think shrewd is what I want to see here. I would have said trying to trade for L'Jarius Sneed would have been considered a shrewd move back in the day. They just way overpaid, and they paid for the wrong player.
Exactly.
So you can still do the shrewd thing poorly. So, right. But I think shrewd is the word I'm trying to land on what I want the front office to be, which is steady, but willing to do the risky thing with conviction, I guess. I don't know.
Here's also the concern. And look, I want Borgonzi and Brinker to a lesser extent to rely on the things that got them hired, which are the things that they were involved in to whatever degree in Kansas City and in Green Bay. And so I don't want Borgonzi not to talk about Kansas City. But when he looks at the very best of what they did in Kansas City, which is finding 2 rookie linemen in what, 20, was it 19?
The Trey Smith stuff, yeah.
The Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith thing. I mean, that is absolutely, like, if you're looking at the 5 moves that Kansas City made to make Kansas City into a dynasty, that draft with those 2 offensive linemen is one of those 5 moves.
2021, just for
2021. I was going to say 2021, and then I thought that's too recent. Yeah, but it's 5 years of Trey Smith. So and I don't want him not to offer that as an example. That's a great example. And I don't want to parse his words, but you also have to say, like, hey, we did it in Kansas City with these 2 guys. It was a special example, and we need to find a special example of our own. And I don't think he threw it out there loosely. And I think you could imply that he's intending to say that. But this is a team that hasn't done those sorts of things. This is a team that's ended up with Sebastian Tretola as its 6th round offensive lineman, right?
Would you call Robinson's first 3 years steady and shrewd? Like, stay the course, stay focused on what you're doing, don't get distracted, be convicted in what you're doing, and then when you see the shrewd move, Tannehill or DeMarco Murray or drafting Derrick Henry, you go do it. Is that a fair way to?
That's fair. I mean, I think before all of that, or at the core of all of that, he picked good players on a consistent basis for 3 drafts.
Sure, that helps.
All
right, let me take you into because this pertains a little bit more to the draft around the front office, because that's really what I'm fascinated by here. There's culture in a locker room, which is about leadership and respect and peer to peer sort of interaction. And I think we all kind of know, while it's complicated, we kind of know what it is, right? You know how to describe it. You know what it looks like. It's about a coach who can communicate with respect to people. And I think the way Vrabel built all of that, and I don't know, like, I talked to dozens and dozens of players over the years with Vrabel asking what made it work. Why did it work? And there was just this ball knowledge and a communication expertise that Vrabel was so good at. And I think Saleh has some of that stuff too. Ball knowledge and really good one-on-one with players. I think that we'll know what that looks like. It's easy to define. You can see fast and physical. You can see a well-coached defense, a defense that tackles well. You can see a running game that is effective on 3rd and short. Like, it's easy to see. It's so much harder in the front office to define it and to understand it all. Who's in the room, in your opinion? Like, if they're making a decision right now and they're going, hey, we got to decide between Bailey and Love right now, and they've got a big meeting they've called, who are the 7, 8, 9 people that are in there, in your opinion? We mentioned a bunch of them, but I'm curious, like, who did I miss in that group?
Well, Borgonzi, Brinker, McKenzie, Ziegler, and Sagany. Okay. That's the core of it right there.
what do you make of, and you may not have the exact answers, but I want you to kind of noodle on this a little bit, which is, what do you make of the personality of that room? Who's the biggest voice? Who's the quiet wisdom guy? Who is the one that brings the energy? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, how do all those personalities fit together?
Well, I think like Mackenzie is probably like quiet, and they might have to turn to him on some stuff. I think they regard him as a line guy. And so maybe they turn to him, especially when they want line opinion or feel like there is some question to be resolved with regard to linemen on either side of the ball. He's the guy I think I have the best sense of what they're maybe leaning on him for. I think that Borgonzi probably leans on Brinker for that kind of similar value thing of the melding of Green Bay and Kansas City, of the steadiness. Here's how we would have done it in Kansas City. How would you have done it in Green Bay? And kind of melding those two things, which are at their heart similar philosophically on the draft and develop and not be rash, and stick with the kind of patient and shrewd thinking that you were talking about. I can't pretend to really know about Saganey or
it's
Ziegler.
hard.
Yeah.
Here's
something I'd like to look into more.
Here's how and this is where it came from to me, is being around these guys just briefly, not as much as you and Nick, but talking to everybody. I feel like this is not a room that would look really interesting on Hard Knocks. Now, let me go explain what I mean by that. Some guys, some men or women in your business, that they're the ones who are like, we're pounding the table for something. They're bringing energy. Like, I used to be that guy in meetings. Like, I would come in and I'm like really excited about something. I really think the company should do this. I really believe in this strategy. I'm into it, man. I bring an intensity to those kinds of conversations that not everybody appreciates all the time. And I understand that. But I think a lot of time rooms kind of need that personality. I get the sense that this is a very calculated, by the book, calm and steady room as a combination of personalities, because I think Borgonzi exudes that, in my opinion. So I don't know. Is that a fair way to look at this room? Like, it's not the room that's going to like stand up and be roo rah rah all the time, and it's going to look really good on television. But like, I could see them getting the exact player they want at 35, and all of them are sitting around just going like, "Nice job, way to go."
Yeah, I think they probably have certain energy to him, and I think Borgonzi is probably the most energetic, knowing what I know. In spurts, in spots. But yeah, I think it's a low key group.
That's kind of my assumption.
Who Bustin hates those.
He's getting mad at me for being the he's like, I'm not gonna lie, I strongly dislike those guys. The one who brings the energy to the meeting.
Somebody's got to do it.
The accent makes me think Borgonzi can get loud. I think he is a Boston guy through and through, and I think that in his younger years, I think that's true.
I hope he's hurting a little bit over that miserable Red Sox start.
Oh. NFL, this is a good take here from Greenhouse. NFL war rooms shouldn't aspire to be reality TV level of entertainment. I agree completely with you, and that's why I'm interested in this. That's why this thing interests me. I want to know what the personality of the room is.
I don't think they were aspiring to be reality TV level of entertainment when Vrabel got up from the table when the AJ Brown trade was completed. I think that was actual reality TV, not fake reality TV. Where what was the MTV show where they put people in a house together?
Real world.
I mean, that's not the real world. In the real world, you choose who you live with. In the artificial world, they put you with random people and film you, and they call that the real world. There's nothing real world about that. It was very real world for Vrabel to get up and discuss when the AJ Brown trade was filed.
Ed Henry says, Braden in a team meeting on Monday mornings. Geez, that's why I run my own company, Ed.
That's why you don't hold the meetings on Monday.
No, exactly. Well, that's for every company. You don't hold meetings in the morning on Mondays or in the afternoons on Fridays. Okay, just seriously, if you run a business, stop with that garbage. Here's what I'd say though. I think the way you hear the rooms, and I'm not trying to do this to go back to pick on Rand Carthon. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Oh, let's do it.
But the way you hear those rooms and interactions and personalities and sort of like the dynamics in that room, the way you've heard it described over the last few years is total chaos
and snoring.
A lot of like disconnected people doing different things. So-and-so's over here doing this and this person's over here doing that. And where's this guy? He's not in the room. Like it felt very chaotic when you hear it described. And I get the sense that this is a more buttoned up kind of business-like approach. And if that's,
with purpose,
I can hear Stillman on his show today already. Go check it out. Like, oh, Braden and PK, they're just buying whatever the Titans are selling. It's like, no, I'm just trying to understand the personality of the individuals who have to coexist to make difficult decisions. And ultimately, that's what football is all about in the front office.
He knows that these guys are smarter and more organized than Rand Carthon. If he wants to play the game where he pretends like we're over giving the benefit of the doubt for entertainment and click sakes, so be it. And have something to scream about because it's a slow day, then have at it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, if it's good Kool-Aid, I'm definitely sipping, says Greenhouse. There you go. Bustin says, or when Atlanta's general manager trying to convince Arthur Blank that Michael Penix was a good pick. So, look, we learned about this stuff after the fact a lot. And it's not to say that there won't be decisions that are questionable or difficult or that there's disagreement inside the Titans building. To your point, like I would love to learn more about in the room, when do they go to Reggie McKenzie? It's not that they don't all have wisdom and their experiences and their knowledge about positions or players or scouts or whatever, or, hey, I've got this trick over here. But like, I'd love to know when they're in the room and they've got a difficult decision about X and okay, that's the one that they go to Ziegler on. Like, I'd love to know what that is. And
yeah, they also want you to believe that all of this is pre-ironed out, though. Chaos theory will have things happen that are unforeseen, no matter how much you mock it out. Something happens that throws you off course or leaves somebody available you weren't expecting, or something that does demand discussion. Not like Draft Day, the movie, but you always hear stories years after the fact about something that threw a team off course and did mandate a discussion they weren't expecting to have.
I think they want to have. I think what's really interesting is that the outward portrayal of their brand, I think they want that to be like the polar opposite of the inward functionality of the brand. Like, I think they want the outward thing to be, we're Broadway, we're connected to Broadway, we're the new hot thing in town, here are the new logos, we're going to party, we got the new quarterback. And then on the back end, they want it to be like all business. It's like the opposite of a mullet.
Well, in order to have that outward appearance, there's a lot of stuff that has to go on behind the scenes in a sensible way to earn kind of that presentation. I think anybody, and I don't claim to have one, but anybody with a business head knows that to put off the smooth presentation, there's a lot of hard churn that goes on behind the scenes. And it doesn't matter if that hard churn is high energy or methodical, or just matters that it gets done.
Do you think all the moves so far last offseason, post Carthon, and this offseason have fallen into that? Because I would use adjectives to describe the brand, right? They want to be shrewd, they want to be calculating, they want to be professional, they want to be adults, and then they also want to be distinct and fun outwardly, right? Do you think that the vast majority of their decisions have fallen into those categories over the last two off seasons?
It's a big question. I mean, I automatically run to personnel and I think, well, no, I don't think Cody Barton fits that. I know what they were doing. I know what they were doing with Dan Moore, but it caused kind of a backlash in the league that hurt average left tackles in the market this season, where nobody got what Dan Moore got. So if they were thinking, hey, well, Dan Moore did awfully well for an average left tackle, I'm going to do awfully well, it did not work that way. So I wouldn't say personnel wise necessarily last year's crop that was chosen by, or the even go back 2 years, the selection of JC Latham is still something we're questioning where he should be established, but he's on the same timeline that maybe Peter Skoronski was on, where he didn't lock in until his third year. So you hope it's the same, but you wish it had been faster. But I think kind of the organizational front that you're talking about in terms of now with the rebranding and the stadium coming and the football, you'd like them to be on parallel tracks, but they're separate entities in a lot of ways, melded together when guys are wearing that stuff and hopefully putting forth a better product that helps all causes.
What's interesting is sort of Bustin's comment about on the field, which is I'm fine with it being boring this year. If they get 5 or 7 wins, we're still rebuilding. Ultimately, the style of offense you actually execute, which is a little bit of a different question here, but that style of offense, frankly, fans don't. You can run the triple option if you win games. Like
fans, I was going to say the
fans
same
don't
thing.
care.
Especially after back-to-back 3-win seasons, I don't know that there's much winning that's boring. And the way they're likely to win is probably close. And close NFL games are by nature, most of the time, pretty entertaining.
Yeah. All right. Make sure you check out Sinkers Beverages. Make sure you RSVP to the draft party, the charity event coming up on Thursday and Saturday, the weekend of the draft, the 23rd and the 25th. RSVP in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Listen to all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. Make sure you subscribe to paulkuharsky.com for good coverage of your Tennessee Titans. Did this conversation make any sense to you?
Yeah, I mean,
does where I'm coming from make sense at all?
It does. I think there's a lot for us to learn, us and to learn to convey to people so that they can learn.
Yeah.
And when we're around the team on a more regular basis, we'll have a chance to kind of poke around at some of this stuff to whatever degree we'd like. I'd certainly, I'd like to know that, when they go to certain guys or what their roles are more collectively. I don't know that they'll offer up specifics or that they have specifics beyond, with Ziegler and Sagany and McKenzie. I think they may just say, hey, everybody chimes in, or when they have something to say, or when I turn to them, and they're all resources. It may be as simple as that.
Well, every single one of them has been involved in these meetings other places. And so maybe the question that would get them going, because I'm really more interested on a human level than I am like trying to play gotcha with somebody who didn't make the right decision. It's not that. Yeah. It's more just like I'm fascinated by human psychology and human relationships and how a group gets to a successful strategy and process. And so I'm sure they've all had experiences in their careers where they had successful processes and unsuccessful processes. And I'd love to know what it looks like when you're in the middle of an unsuccessful process versus a positive one. And I just would like to know, what's the personality of that room need to be to find the success? And is it about knowledge? Is it about dynamics? Is it about one person being just the definitive end-all be-all decision maker? Like how I'm sure it looks different for everybody. And so I'm just fascinated by how so many minds with so much experience come together and create success. And I find that interesting. So who knows?
Well, I think part of it, at least, is being open to new stuff. And that's why there are so many of them right. From so many different places. I mean, Mackenzie's been around. And the other guys have been in different places that have tried it different ways. Sagany from Cleveland, which, has had limited success, but certainly tested some boundaries of some different ways of doing things. And so, there's some stuff to be learned.
Yeah. And all these guys have had, I guarantee you, every one of these guys has had a moment where they got the guy they wanted and it was great. They got the guy they wanted, and it wasn't great. So we'll see what happens. Otherwise, support all the good local journalism and the good small businesses in our community, and come out and support the Our Kids Foundation, a great local charity here, by signing up for our draft party. RSVP in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. PK, anything else? You good? What do you got coming up on the site?
Good for now. I think I'm going to rank these remaining needs. So we're doing a lot of player ranking. I'm going to rank what's left in terms of what they need.
Okay.
Drew Beatty's going to write about more specifically receivers in the second round and beyond coming up.
There you go. There you have it. Thank you guys all for being in the comment section. Please, notifications turned on, thumbs up, all that good stuff. You can see the show. Really good stuff coming on Monday evening on the YouTube page with myself and James Foster covering offensive linemen. You'll get to see all kinds of film and analysis and breakdown of first-round targets, middle-round targets, interior targets later in the draft, all kinds of good stuff. So check that out as well. PaulKuharsky.com, Sinkers Beverages. For all you guys listening, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much. We will talk to you guys on Thursday.
Yep.